Parts of Los Angeles are under another night of curfew restrictions as Mayor Karen Bass tries to clamp down on the vandalism and protests in the city. The Los Angeles Police Department reported 78 arrests overnight for charges including failure to disperse and curfew violations. A crowd also reported throwing concrete and commercial-grade fireworks at officers, but there were no reports of arrests for vandalism or looting. Thousands of National Guard troops remain stationed throughout the city. Today, a battalion of 700 Marines is expected to arrive there in L.A. Meanwhile, a federal appeals court has ruled the Trump administration can maintain control of those troops in California. The late-night ruling reverses a lower court judge's order. A federal judge had told the administration to return control of the National Guard to Governor Gavin Newsom earlier in the day. But the Trump administration quickly filed an appeal, resulting in a temporary pause of the lower court's ruling. The appeals court will hold a hearing on the matter next week. Governor Newsom has opposed President Trump's decision to deploy the troops, arguing the presence of militarized law enforcement only intensifies protests and raises the possibility of conflict. Joining us now, MSNBC legal correspondent, former litigator Lisa Rubin, New York Times opinion columnist David French, the president of Voto Latino Foundation, Maria Teresa Kumar, and Rogers Chair in the American presidency at Vanderbilt University, historian John Meacham. Good morning to you all. Lisa, let me begin with you. Kind of a quick back and forth for people having trouble keeping up in the courts yesterday about who gets to control these National Guard troops. Can you kind of walk us through what happened and where it sits this morning?
So, Willie, yesterday, late at night, maybe about 8 o'clock last night, Judge Charles Breyer, he is a federal judge sitting in San Francisco, and if the name sounds familiar, it is because he's also the brother of retired Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. He ruled last night that the single statute that Trump used to justify bringing in the National Guard had 3 predicates to it, and that Trump didn't meet any of them in calling in the National Guard. Therefore, the use and deployment of the Guard in Los Angeles, based on Trump's June 7th memo, is unlawful, and he temporarily restrained them from using the Guard, saying that the control of the California National Guard, and there are 4,000 of them that have been called up, has to be returned to Governor Gavin Newsom. Later last night, not even 2 hours later, the Ninth Circuit of the U.S. Court of Appeals put a temporary pause on that order, as you said. That means that, in effect, nothing is changed and won't be changed at least until next Tuesday, when that Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals meets to hear argument as to whether Judge Breyer's temporary restraining order should or should not be honored. One of the things that might have been going through that appeals court's head last night in granting the stay, and they didn't really write an opinion, they just said, we're going to grant this temporary pause, here is when briefs are due. One of the things they may have been thinking about is trying to prevent further chaos by pulling back the National Guard, returning them to Newsom, who clearly would have sent them home, saying the LAPD and the LA sheriff had this well in hand. That could have made for a chaotic situation if the Ninth Circuit then reversed it. And so one of the things they may have been trying to do last night is just preserve what is a status quo right now, particularly given that Judge Breyer also found last night that it's too speculative to say that the use of the Guard to date violates the Posse Comitatus Act. That's the federal statute that prohibits using military troops for civilian law enforcement.
So President Trump has not yet invoked the Insurrection Act, though he and his aides have certainly started to use that word a little bit, perhaps just dangling it out there in case they decide to go that route. So outside of that, just big picture and taking politics out of it and how many Americans feel about troops being in the streets of an American city, is the president, is the Trump administration at this point on solid legal ground by sending those National Guard troops in?
Can they do it right now? Yes. Should they do it based on the reasoning of this decision? I would argue no. It's a really thorough decision. And, Willie, it's a clever one because it's set up to withstand appeal. One of the things that Judge Breyer does in his opinion is he credits all the facts that the Trump administration offered him. Essentially, he says, look, I don't dispute that every mango that was chucked at law enforcement officers, every firework, every piece of concrete that you say was thrown at ICE officers that happened. And yet, notwithstanding that, you weren't in your authority because this doesn't constitute a rebellion and you haven't shown that you were thoroughly unable to execute the laws of the United States. Just having an impediment to your execution of immigration laws isn't what the statute demands. So could Donald Trump continue to send National Guard to other places in the country by mimicking the order that he sent down last weekend? Sure. But do I think this will ultimately withstand judicial scrutiny? I wouldn't necessarily bet so. And so the Trump administration may be thinking about that over the coming days, wanting to see how this plays out in Los Angeles. Or alternatively, they may deploy National Guardsmen in other areas of the country where we're seeing protest activity ratchet up. The one other thing that I want to bring to your and our viewers' attention is that Judge Breyer notes that the federalization, and I'm reading from the opinion of 4,000 members of California's National Guard, I'm sorry, I'm reading from the wrong portion of what I wanted to read to you. He's talking about the overreach. He's saying that federal overreach risks instigating the very behavior that the federal government fears. To put a finer point on it, the federal government cannot be permitted to exceed its bounds and in doing so create the very emergency conditions that it then relies on to justify federal intervention. That's a warning, I think, to the Trump administration. Don't go too far right now. You might not have gone far enough to violate the Posse Comitatus Act, but if you overreach here, you will be responsible for ratcheting up the protest activity such that it reaches a fervor and a point that it hasn't reached before you got involved.
And by the way, that's the exact case that Governor Newsom has made, which is the LAPD's got this. We don't need troops in the street, perhaps escalating things. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Thanks so much, Lisa. You can check out Lisa's show. How can they do that on MSNBC's YouTube channel? So while all that